Chapter 2, Chapter 1, The Lost Pet. Breath of Fire 2, War of the Demons. Book I, Ranger. Chapter 1, The Lost Pet. The sun was high and the streets were busy in the oddly named eastern city of Hometown. The capital of the land of Auria, it was a huge city that had nevertheless seen better days. A river running down the north-south line separated the old town, built back in the days when it had been the most prosperous city in the world, from the much shabbier newer half where the poorer members of the population lived. The river shifted often, and dozens of bridges crossed its current path as well as running over roads built through empty channels. The noon bell rang near two young men, both 17, as they slipped out of their apartment building through the back door and began making their way towards the richer side of town. One was human, a muscular youth in an undershirt and baggy red pants, his only distinguishing feature his strange blue hair, bound back in a short ponytail. The other was a mixed clan mutt, stout and cheerful looking with floppy ears and a short snout, wearing a heavy green robe belted at his waist over white leggings.
Okay, so what were you saying about Sima back there?
Ryu asked once they were clear of the alley behind their home.
First you say they're not all that different than us, then you say they are. You're being inconsistent. No, man, listen,
Bao told him firmly.
It's nothing huge, but it's everything that you don't really think about. Like, take their bars. Okay.
Ryu raised an eyebrow.
They get thirsty just like anybody else, right? Of course they do,
Bao agreed.
But see, when everybody goes to a bar in that country, they all ask for wine instead of ale. So?
Ryu shrugged.
Plenty of folks like wine here. Sure, and there's a few who like ale over there,
Bao conceded.
But the majority, man, they drink wine. I'm talking about what everybody drinks. Old guys, young guys, schoolgirls, school moms, bums off the street, rich folks slumming it, they go in, and they all want wine. So what you're telling me,
Ryu said slowly,
is that if a crew of huge old hard-ass carpenters and masons hit a bar on the way home from work, they'd all order wine?
Bao nodded.
Every one of them. Well, I'm never going there.
Ryu shook his head.
How'd you know all this, anyways? You've never been to Sima Fort. Books, man.
Bao rolled his eyes.
I keep telling you, they ain't just there to be paperweights. You should try reading one somehow, so you don't forget how. I got enough books when my old man was still alive,
Ryu reminded him.
I'll leave that angle to you. So they drink wine instead of beer? That the only difference? Of course not,
Bao continued.
But see, it's all stuff like that, right? The little things, that you never really think about. Example. All right.
Bao thought for a moment, and a mischievous smirk crossed his face.
What do you figure you'll have for dinner tonight? Some soup.
Ryu shrugged.
Bread. Some ham, or maybe beef. Hopefully not mutton. Same as usual. Right, except if you were over there, you wouldn't be having ham or beef,
Bao explained.
You would be having worm, or maybe beetle. Worm?
Ryu demanded.
You're full of shit. I'm serious.
Bao insisted.
They've got huge bugs over there. Size of cats and dogs at the least. Some of those worms get bigger than cows. Worm for dinner,
Ryu said with obvious distaste.
Takes all kinds, I guess. Man, I'm never going there.
Shaking his head, he stopped in front of an old house in obvious disrepair.
This the place? Yeah.
Bao scowled.
We should have brought our gear. How many we got in there?
Ryu asked, frowning.
5 to 10. 5 to 10.
He turned to stare at Bao.
That's a pretty big spread. Is it 5, or is it 10? Hell if I know,
Bao growled.
So what you're saying is, there could be 10 of them in there. And the old lady. We should have brought our gear,
Ryu agreed.
Think we should get our ranger's licenses out. You think they're gonna do any good?
Bao asked.
Probably not,
he conceded.
Alright, let's get this over with.
Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the front door, coughing as dust spread in his face.
Miss Marvin? We're from the Rangers Guild, and...
That was as far as he got before a yowling cat took him full in the face, clinging to his head like a vice.
Get out!
A filthy, screeching hag in an ancient, ruined wedding dress howled, grabbing another cat from off of a chair and throwing it at Bao next.
Get out, jut out, jut out, jut out, jut ut! Yikes!
Bao ducked under the flying feline and dug into a pocket frantically as Ryu yelled in pain, trying to pull the first one off of him.
We're here to deliver your medicine. The apothecary said you were out. He hired us to deliver it.
Producing a red bottle, he set it down on a dusty table and backed away.
Mine.
The old lady dove on the bottle, snatching it up. Backing away, she looked around for another cat to throw, and found one, pitching it at Beau's stomach this time.
My precious. Mine, 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 mine. Job's done.
Ryu shouted, finally succeeding in separating cat from face.
Let's get out of here.
Bao, disentangling his own enemy from his robes, grunted in agreement. Hurling the feral animals at what looked like soft furniture, they bolted, slamming the door behind them and running for several more streets before stopping to catch their breath.
Join the Rangers, you said,
Ryu snarled once he had recovered his wind.
Adventure, excitement, money, and women, you said.
He shook his head in disgust.
That was not what I had in mind, technically accurate as it might have been. Is it my fault clowns come to the Rangers Guild for stupid shit?
Bao demanded, still panting.
Just be glad it wasn't another babysitting call. Next lady to try slipping that one past our policies getting an education in terminology, free of charge,
Ryu muttered darkly.
Let's head back to the main office. Remind me why the hell we agreed to that job again. Because it paid, that's why,
Bao told him.
We're a week behind on rent, and there weren't all that many options available. This had the highest reward out of what was up on the board. Sometimes we gotta make sacrifices. Sacrifices, schmacrifices.
Ryu sighed.
How the hell are we ever gonna save up enough to start up our own outfit if we can't even make the rent without resorting to this kind of crap? You think I'm enjoying it any more than you are?
Bao shook his head.
Man, wait until Sylvia hears about this one. Seeing that ought to cheer me up a little, at least.
Ryu grinned suddenly.
Managed to get her to agree to anything yet? No, but it won't be long now.
Bao grinned back.
I've got a plan, see. I know how to get her for at least one date. Oh, really?
Ryu asked skeptically.
This, I've got to hear. 4 tickets to the circus outside of town,
Bao explained smugly.
One of the guards handed M over in exchange for me keeping quiet about some of his private reading material. I tell Sylvia you and me arranged a double date, and ad-lib it from there. Sounds like you've got everything figured out,
Ryu said sarcastically.
Except for the part where I'm supposed to be bringing a date to the circus. I appreciate the free tickets, but who the hell am I going to take? There's always Dee's,
Bao suggested.
She's cute, right? You want me to ask Dee's out on a date,
Ryu said flatly.
You know, you're like a brother to me, and I'd die for you. Doesn't mean you should put me dying into the plan. Look, just tell her you're both helping me out cause you're my buddies,
Bao explained further.
It doesn't have to be serious. We've hit the bars with her plenty of times, right? Dee's is cool. She'll be fine with it. I heard my name.
A familiar voice called down from a wide bridge as they approached the underpass. Leaning over the rail was an equally familiar face, smirking and waving.
On the clock already, guys? Come on, you know better than that. All work and no play makes Jack an old geezer before he hits 30.
Dees was a student at the Orion Magic School, a private institution on the rich side of town. The same age as Ryu and Bao, she was a longtime friend of theirs, ever since they had wound up back-to-back against a gang of muggers on the first night they had arrived in hometown. She was beautiful in an exotic way, but neither of them was stupid enough to try expressing any romantic interest in her. They had seen what had happened to anybody who did. On the many nights the three of them had gone bar hopping after they got off work and she climbed over the wall.
Unlike some people, we actually have to work for a living.
Bao shot back cheerfully.
Skipping class again? I'm hoping you're not drunk yet, at least. It was one of the boring ones.
Dees shrugged, brushing a lock of her deep blue hair behind her ear. She was the first person they had met with the same hair color as Ryu, one reason they had immediately hit it off.
The professor never even notices when I'm not there, and it's nothing I don't already know.
She grinned.
It drives my roommate wild. Can't say I blame her,
Ryu commented.
How come you've never introduced her to us, anyways? We don't exactly hang out in the same places,
Dees explained.
Speaking of which, see you guys in the brigand tonight at the same time. Probably.
Bao agreed.
Unless we're out on a big job. If you're gonna be working that late, it'd better be a big one.
Dee snorted.
We'll try and make it,
Ryu promised.
Especially since it seems we've got a diabolical plan to discuss. Romero here went and told Sylvia that you and me were going on a date to the circus so he could talk her into coming with him on his other 2 tickets. Oh, really?
Dee's smile widened.
And he didn't bother telling us about it first? Well, isn't that interesting? You're right, we really should discuss this amongst ourselves. In detail. Later,
Bao reminded her hastily.
We gotta get back to the office now. Of course.
She waved lazily.
Plenty of time. It's not like you're going anywhere. Or like I couldn't find you if you did. Have a nice day, now. Great,
he muttered.
I'm dead. What were you saying about not deliberately trying to get each other killed, again? Hey, this was your plan, not mine,
Ryu reminded him innocently.
You deserved that one. Besides, what's the worst she could do? For some reason, I think I can do without asking her,
Bao said sourly, the two of them navigating the shabbier side of town once again. Rather than shoving their way through the crowds on the main streets, they ducked through back alleys and lanes. After several years in hometown, they knew their way around by heart. Finding their way to a tavern in the southwest corner of the city, they went around back towards the cellar, where the local branch office of the Rangers Guild was currently located.
Wait, hold on. Let's fix ourselves up before we go in. Want to look good before you hit her with your cunning plan.
Ryu teased his friend as Bao cast a quick spell on them both, causing the damage they had received from the flying felines to heal in only seconds.
You're just jealous because you suck at white magic.
Bao sniffed.
Alright, that's better.
Opening the cellar door, he led the way down the stairs.
Actually, no. Let me correct that. Because you suck at magic, period. Hey, I know time warp, don't I?
Ryu argued as they entered the lobby.
That's time magic. I may not know much, but I know time magic is supposed to be top-level stuff. That's because time warp is a predetermined spell.
Bao growled.
Notice how it doesn't use up any of your mana? That's because you either have it or you don't, from birth. Having another one of your scintillating intellectual discussions, boys.
Sylvia, a fellow ranger, asked by way of greeting them. A serious, pretty human girl only slightly older than them with short, honey-colored hair, she generally had a better chance than anybody else of reining in their more illogical forays. As usual, she was taking care of the paperwork from behind a desk, a book of assignments in front of her. The ink stains on the sleeves of her white and blue dress said a lot about her priorities.
It passes the time,
Bao replied easily.
We did the job, by the way. Under great protest. I know we already said we were only doing it under protest, but put it down again, just to make the point clear. Stop whining.
She rolled her eyes.
It's paying your bills, isn't it? And speaking of which, go on in and see Elder Allen. He's already got something else lined up for you as soon as he pays you for this one.
She smirked.
It's right up your alley, too. Why do I sense impending doom?
Ryu asked flatly.
You'll be fine, she said. Go on in. Right.
Ryu rolled his eyes, but the two of them walked past her and opened the door to the elder's office.
Ah, Ryu and Bao.
The old man behind the desk looked up from his own files, twitching his eyebrows.
I take it you were successful in your mission.
The local head of the Rangers Guild, Elder Allen, was one of a dozen men and women who oversaw operations throughout the world. An ancient man with a long jaw and prominent brow, his grey mustache and eyebrows were all overgrown, possibly to compensate for his completely bald head. It was probably unkind to compare his blue robes to Sylvia's dress, but one couldn't help noticing.
Here's hoping that Apothecary keeps up on his own delivery schedule from now on,
Ryu commented dryly.
Yeah, we did it. Well then.
Elder Allen tossed a pouch towards them.
Your pay. 50 zinni, agreed. I still say we should have gotten more for hazard pay.
Snatching it out of the air, Bao made it disappear with all the skill of a professional entertainer.
And speaking of more, Sylvia said you were saving something for us. I take it that means this isn't an ordinary job. You would be correct.
Selecting a piece of paper, he pushed it across the desk towards them.
Here, see what you think of this. Alright, let's. Not again.
Bao cried upon reading the assignment.
Another missing pet? Come on, elder. We've been full-fledged rangers for almost a year now. You don't want it, then?
The elder asked, waggling his eyebrows again.
Hold on.
Ryu frowned, something was up with the way the elder was acting.
Let me see that. Here.
Bao gave it to him, disgusted.
Don't see why, though. This is silly. And besides, what kind of idiot loses their pet anyways? Elder Allen, sir.
A young girl's voice said quietly from behind them. Turning, they saw her, a pretty little wing clanswoman, several years younger than them. She wore an expensive-looking purple dress, an interesting contrast to the light pink feathered wings sprouting from her back. What really drew their attention, however, was her long blue hair, and the silver circlet she wore around her head.
Miss Sylvia said the rangers who would find Susie were back. Are these them? They look very capable. Hello, Mina.
Elder Allen coughed.
Well, it seems they don't want the job. Whoa, wait, what?
Bao cried, reversing his mood instantly.
Nobody said we wouldn't do it.
Turning to Mina, he bowed elaborately.
Your Highness, I'm Bao and this is my partner, Ryu. You can leave it to us. We'll bring your pet back for you. What he said,
Ryu agreed. Out of curiosity, he fingered the dragon tear hanging on a string around his neck. Bao read deep blue, as usual, the color of close friendship. Elder Allen was more interesting, the jade green color was a step up from the more yellowish shade he usually showed, indicating that he actually was starting to trust them with the more delicate work. The girl, Mina, was about what he had expected, yellow with a slightly green tinge, showing trust in their abilities if not outright approval.
Thank you, then.
She smiled shyly.
I've already given Elder Allen all the information, so I'll let you get to work.
Curtsying quickly, she left as quietly as she had entered.
Change of heart, is it?
Elder Allen's face was blank, but his eyes were twinkling.
How unlike you, Bao. What's behind this? Come on, Elder,
Bao said loudly, raising his voice.
What kind of a guy would I be if I wasn't glad to help such a pretty girl find her pet? Man, she's probably 12,
Ryu pointed out, amused, without looking up from the paper. As soon as Mina had left, he had started reading it. Bao generally took the lead when it came to negotiating their jobs, which was fine with him.
13, at the most. And I'm 17.
Bao snorted.
It's not like I'm asking her to marry me. Wouldn't say no to a thank you kiss, though.
He chuckled.
HMMMM.
Elder Allen leaned back in his chair.
You're calculating man, Bao. All right then, the job's yours. Don't let me down, Heck no.
Bao slapped Ryu on the back.
Come on, buddy, let's go start asking around. If you want to.
Ryu gave Elder Allen the paper back.
We'll see you when we return, then, Elder. Farewell, then.
Elder Allen nodded, already turning back to his papers.
Right.
Bao led the way back out, humming. Sylvia was behind her desk, but she had a somewhat irritated look on her face now.
Well, we got the job. So I heard,
Sylvia muttered, not looking up.
Try not to die out there. Gee, thanks,
Bao replied, looking even more cheerful, if that was possible.
See you around, then. She's ticked off at you because you were all over that girl, you know?
Ryu pointed out, voice amused. He had actually already worked out what Bao had been thinking, but that didn't mean he couldn't joke about it.
Yes, she is,
Bao agreed gleefully.
Which means she is interested in me, no matter what she says.
He scratched his snout.
Must be my dashing good looks. Right.
Ryu rolled his eyes.
So what's the real reason you agreed to this, then, if it isn't because of the girl? You and Elder Allen knew something I didn't. Buddy, you're my best friend, but you really need to learn to keep up with this stuff.
Bao shook his head in mock despair.
That was Princess Mina back there. She's the heir to the Windian throne. I don't know what she's doing around these parts, but that's not important. What's important is, this is our chance for an in with the royal family. Finding her pet?
Ryu asked, raising an eyebrow.
Look, what counts is that she'll remember us,
Bao said dismissively.
And then, years from now when we're running our own group, once we make a name for ourselves, she'll hear about that, too. If you say so.
Ryu shrugged.
I'll let you handle the thinking part, buddy. You're better at it than I am. Besides, she is pretty cute,
Bao added.
Shame she isn't a couple years older. I retract my previous statement entirely,
Ryu said, deadpan.
I just hope it pays well,
his friend continued, ignoring that.
How is it? You did check out the paperwork discreetly while I was doing all the talking, Mr. I'll let you handle the brain work, didn't you? Oh, I did,
Ryu admitted.
Here's the good news. We bring the Susie back alive and in one piece, and we get paid 500 zeni. Now that's what I'm talking about.
Bao whistled.
Man, we owe Elder Allen an apology. Handing us something like this almost makes up for all.
He trailed off, gears turning in his head.
Alright, what's the catch? The catch is, she wasn't in town when she lost the pet,
Ryu explained.
She was south of here, examining some old ruins. Must have been that abandoned city.
Bao snapped his fingers, then groaned.
Ah, geez. Which is all the way on the other side of Mount Fubi. Which is a week's trip away, on foot,
Ryu added.
Damn.
Bao closed his eyes for a moment, then recovered.
Well, hell, nobody promised us easy. How long is Mina going to be in town? Another month.
Ryu shrugged.
So we've got a week to get there, a week to get back, and 2 weeks to cross Mount Fubi both ways and look for this Susie. Which we might need, if the critter's lost in those ruins out there. Let's hope a beak didn't eat it. One of these days, we have got to do something about that optimism of yours.
Bao looked up at the sky.
It's not even one yet. We might as well start out today. Let's go back to our place, get our gear, and head out. Diesel just have to hit the bars without us tonight. You're not going to be able to run from her forever, you know,
Ryu informed him smugly.
She'll hunt you down, if she has to. Details, details.
Bao waved his hand dismissively.
I'll figure something out. Come on, let's see if we can slip back in without running into Martha. Sure, and if we can pull that one off, we can try burgling Duke Kilgore and Count Trout in the same night.
Ryu snorted as they turned back onto their street.
It'd be easier.
As he had predicted, as soon as they were inside, the door to the landlady's apartment on the bottom floor opened, and she poked her head out.
Back already, you two?
Martha asked, smirking. Sylvia's aunt and a former ranger herself, she provided lodgings at a discounted rate for all guild members, and could usually be talked into waiting a few days on the rent. Whether it was worth putting up with her persistence whenever she did so was another matter entirely.
If Elder Allen paid you for that mission, then you should be able to come up with what you owe me now, You got it, Martha.
Ryu gave Bao a glance, indicating his suggestion that they just get it over with. His friend glared back, then sighed, pulling out nearly half of what they had made from their latest job and handing it over.
Good.
She pocketed the zenny.
I won't have to sell your possessions while you're away on Mount Fubi. Watch out, by the way, I've heard tales that some harpies have moved in there, and they're doing a number on the local wildlife. Can do, Martha.
Bao nodded, heading upstairs. Once her door had closed again, his voice dropped.
Man, how the hell does her information network even work? Like I'm supposed to know.
Dodging a hyperactive 6-year-old from the apartment across the hall, Ryu followed Bao into their own residence. It was a shabby, one-room deal, but it was the first place actually resembling a home either of them had ever had, and it wasn't bad for a couple of former street kids. As usual, their beds were unmade and old clothes were hanging around on various articles of furniture. Ignoring the mess, they crossed to the closet and removed their equipment, or what passed for it.
First thing we do once we get paid for this, we get better equipment,
Ryu suggested, slipping on a pair of steel wristbands.
Helmets made out of old salad bowls? Body armor made out of suede? We're lucky we don't get laughed out of the bars. It's the same stuff that everybody starts out with,
Bao reminded him as they pulled their armor, such as it was, on over their clothes.
They've all been there, and they remember. Should we take our bum cloaks? Might as well.
Ryu attached the sheath for his cheap bronze sword onto his belt.
Never know when it'll rain. We don't want to get caught out there without them. Good point.
Picking up his undersized crossbow, Bao strapped it to his back.
Bring your fishing rod, too. I don't want to be the only one taking care of food. You going to tell me how to tie my shoes, next?
Ryu rolled his eyes, tying his bait pouch to his belt as well before taking the rod. He had had to save up for a year to buy it, and it wasn't even a particularly good rod, but it was better than what he had had before. Guys like them had to plan ahead when it came to catching their dinner.
Let's get going, then.
Leaving the apartment, they drifted towards the eastern gate, out of unspoken agreement to avoid the more heavily patrolled southern one. Neither of them had any particular reason to avoid the city guard, but they nevertheless maintained a wariness of armed authority on general principle. Their path carried them past where the old dragon temple had once stood, now an empty alley containing only the statue of Loden. It was there that Ryu's world first started to change around him, slowly but surely, becoming something he never would have believed had he not lived through it.
Another crowd of people, off to worship Saint Eva,
an old man's voice grumbled, startling them both. It sounded like he was standing right next to them.
One day you're seeing sermons every 7th day, the next you're out in the alley like trash.
Hey, Ryu muttered, looking around the alley. As he had thought, he and Bao were alone.
You hearing that?
Sure am, Bao agreed.
You thinking what I'm thinking? Wait.
The old man's voice sounded surprised.
You are? Yeah, we are.
Ryu glanced over at the statue of Loden. Though its pose remained unchanged, identical to every other one he had seen, its hollowed-out eyes now seemed to be somehow watching them. That was enough for him to reasonably conclude that it probably wasn't some sort of prank.
Nothing personal, but I never thought you were real until now. I don't suppose I can blame you,
Loden's voice admitted.
Current trends being what they are, and all. I just wish I knew why you can hear me. You're the first ones in a very long time who've been able to do so. You're not going to try and convert us now or anything, right?
Bao asked uneasily.
We aren't exactly the best at going to church every time we're supposed to and all that, but we're still followers of Saint Eva. Ha!
Loden chuckled.
No, lads. I'm old enough to be philosophical about that sort of thing. My time is past. I can accept that. I'm just glad to have somebody to talk to again, although I'm guessing you're busy. At the moment,
Ryu said, shrugging.
Maybe we can stop by and talk again sometime after we're done.
For some reason, rather than the unease he would have assumed he'd associate with this sort of thing, he felt like he had just met an old friend again after a long time.
Well, I'm not going anywhere,
Loden joked, and they both smiled slightly.
Good luck on your journey, then. Thanks, man.
Bao nodded politely as they kept walking. They passed through the gate with a wave to the single watchman, and continued down the road.
Hey. That was kind of weird. You think?
Ryu raised an eyebrow.
Could have been worse, though. Yeah.
Bao glanced at him.
You're going to make me take care of dinner tonight, aren't you? It'll be a few days until we reach Lake Oria.
Ryu shrugged.
I'll take my turns once we get there, but until then, it's out of my hands. I don't know shit about hunting. You don't know shit, period,
Bao grumbled.
You had better believe I'm going to keep count of how many turns you'll be saving up. Wouldn't expect any less of you.
Ryu chuckled.
Think we'll have much trouble with monsters? Not as long as we stay on the road to Corsair,
Bao said thoughtfully.
Of course, we'll have to leave it eventually once we get near Mount Phoebe. We'll probably start seeing land leeches around then. I've heard they've been crawling down off the mountain at night to hunt. Until then, probably just beaks and hunchbacks, and the sludges that follow them around. Nothing we can't handle.
Ryu fingered the hilt of his sword.
Nope.
Bao looked down the road and sighed.
You know what we need. Better weapons, actual armor, enough healing supplies that it doesn't feel like we're winging it, an actual base of operations of our own, some more guys.
Ryu ticked them off on his fingers as he went.
Horses,
Bao cut him off.
We seriously need some horses. Do you have any idea how much good horses cost?
Ryu asked, rolling his eyes.
Hell of a lot less than a base of operations is going to,
Bao pointed out.
Yeah.
That night, after Bao had brought down a deer, they made their camp by the side of the road, near some trees. A campfire and a makeshift spit were quick work. They'd both spent a lot of time on the road, for obvious reasons. Tearing meat off, they both ate as much as they could and cut off some more for later, then hauled the carcass off down the road a bit for the scavenging sludges that infested the area.
You know something?
Bao asked casually after they came back to the campfire and were sitting around it, staring up at the stars.
It's been about 10 years now since we first met up, back in Gate. Seems that way,
Ryu agreed, examining his sword for nicks. They'd run into a couple of hunting beaks earlier in the day and handled them without much trouble.
Hard to believe we're still alive sometimes, hey. No kidding,
Bao muttered.
I thought we'd had it, that one time west of Windia with those Kimoto bandits. How about the time we got on the wrong side of the Capitan Guard?
Ryu reminded him.
Let's hope they don't remember us, if we ever go back there. Yeah, and that time we nearly got sold in Corsair, too.
Bao chuckled.
At least those guys are probably all hanged by now. Don't forget the Farmer Leary incident.
Ryu made a rude noise.
Now that was a disaster if I've ever seen one. Yeah,
Bao agreed. They fell silent then, both thinking about the same thing, but neither of them wanting to say it. He was the first to break that silence.
Do you ever still think about him, sometimes?
More. We need more power. God needs more power. Give yourself to our God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your body and soul to God. You are destined to become God's power.
Not really,
Ryu lied. If Bao hadn't picked up on the nightmare he had every time he slept by now, there was no point in talking about it.
I try not to. Yeah, me too.
Bao shrugged.
You want first watch? Might as well,
Ryu agreed.
Shame time warp only works forward. The fact that you think that's a bad thing explains why you've always sucked at magic,
Bao told him sourly.
I'm turning in. Wake me when it's my turn.
Flopping down by the fire, he soon began to snore. The night passed without issue, as did the next one, and the one after that, as Ryu and Bao made their way east, and then south. Things grew more interesting once they reached the point where they left the road, heading west again now that they were near Mount Phoebe. Even then, though, it was nothing they couldn't handle, and they arrived at the base of the mountain path a week after they'd left hometown. Setting up camp for the night, they resolved to make their crossing bright and early the next day. A breakfast of cold sardines later, along with the customary complaints about the quality of Ryu's rod, they started up the mountain trail. Though there weren't many people who had business on the other side of Mount Phoebe these days, enough of them passed through on various affairs to keep the trail clear. At least, that was the way it was supposed to be. Today, things had changed. A massive pile of debris had blocked the path, apparently due to a landslide.
Well,
Bao said flatly after a moment, silently regarding the blockade.
This sucks. No kidding,
Ryu agreed. Shh! A shrill voice hissed from above them. A female voice.
There's another one down there.
Exchanging a glance, Ryu and Bao waited a moment, then bolted for the nearest cave. Once inside, they both leaned against the wall and took out their weapons.
Harpies?
Ryu asked, glancing back outside. Nothing was visible there.
Harpies,
Bao grunted.
Martha did warn us. Guess a pack of them decided the hunting wasn't good enough up in the Tagwoods and came down here. Great.
Looking around the cave, Ryu raised an eyebrow. Ahead of them was an ancient spring, water running out of a dragon's head carved on the wall into a low pool, also deliberately carved.
Hey, check it out. A healing spring. No kidding.
Bao looked as well.
Don't see many of those around. That'll be convenient.
A hissing sound drew his attention to further down the tunnel, leading deep into the mountain.
Especially since we don't seem to be alone in here.
A pack of the monstrous Mount Phoebe leeches was slithering towards them, hideously large blue creatures with ribbed red mouths and vampiric fangs like daggers.
Come back here after we clear the place out. Sounds good.
Ryu strode forward, sword at the ready.
Let's have some fun.
Their fighting style came naturally to both of them, well practiced after long years on the road. Ryu strode forward and drew their attention, chopping the forerunner in half with an overhead slash and drawing the attention of most of the rest. Only one crawled around him towards Bao, which he ignored. Sure enough, it was the first to be speared on a crossbow bolt. The remaining three all lunged at him at once as he pulled his sword from the corpse of the leader, one he batted away with his blade, one he blocked with his bracer, and the third he tried to kick away. The leech, undeterred, sank its fangs into his foot while its packmate did the same with his offhand. Only the one he had hit with his blade was successfully repelled, leaving him able to ignore it for a moment. As he had expected, one of his attackers was dispatched by another shot from Bao, leaving him free to kill the one on his boot just as easily. Turning, he spitted the last one as it lunged for him a second time.
You okay?
Bao asked, cursing as he reloaded his crossbow.
This piece of shit takes way too long to. Gah. Couple of scratches,
Ryu said, shrugging.
These things go for blood, not meat.
A scuffling, clicking noise from even further back caused him to groan.
Of course, they're not all that's around here.
A pair of equally huge and hideous spiders were clambering towards them now, apparently irritated by the loss of their prey. Pink and hairy, with lantern jaws and massive foreheads, they scuttled along the walls quickly, obviously ready to attack.
Those things are poisonous.
Bao snarled, shooting one of them. The bolt struck home, and the spider squealed in pain, dropping to the ground. Still it continued forward, regardless, limping yet living. Its slower pace allowed Ryu to finish it with a chop, but by then, its companion had reached him, dropping from the ceiling onto his head.
Anytime, Bao!
He yelled, slashing wildly as it clambered on his helmet. A moment later, its fangs sunk into the back of his neck, and he cursed, unable to knock it off. Fortunately, Bo's next shot was better aimed than his last one. Rather than hitting the spider's body, the bolt took it through an eye, ventilating its skull.
Sorry, I was making sure I got it aimed right this time.
Bao ran up, muttering the words of a spell under his breath. A globe of light poured into Ryu's body, and though the pain of his wounds was still there, he felt a little better.
That'll take care of the poison. Right,
Ryu grunted.
Good thing we've got that spring. No.
Groaning, a pair of half-decayed corpses were dragging their way towards them, undeterred by the fact that their bodies ended at the waists.
Guess the stories were true. Yeah.
Bao sighed.
Ghouls. The leeches were probably eating em. We've got an entire friggin' ecosystem in here with us,
Ryu cracked.
This is starting to get old. I could use a smoke break. We ain't that lucky. Point.
They ended up spending the better part of an hour in the tunnel, finding more and more monsters the further they went in. Whenever their wounds became too severe, they returned to the healing spring. Its waters contained potent white magic, healing their bodies as well as restoring Bo's own magical stores. Eventually, they reached the back of the tunnel, only to find what they had been hoping for, another entrance, leading further up the mountain.
Those corpses,
Ryu said once they had finished up, leaning against the wall of the tunnel for a few minutes' rest.
There were more of them than you would expect from an occasional unlucky traveler getting brought down by leeches and spiders. They've got goblins up here too,
Bao reminded him.
But yeah. They looked pretty half-even. Harpies. Could they have caused that landslide?
Ryu asked.
Pretty good way to ambush travelers. Harpies are intelligent,
Bao told him, pulling a fresh quarrel of ammo from his pack.
They're probably a clan, scientifically speaking at least. But they're completely feral, they'll eat anything as long as it bleeds. Let me guess.
Ryu made a face.
They actually prefer prey they can play with before it's dinner time. How'd you guess?
Bao glanced outside.
We're gonna have to deal with them when we go out there, you know. I know,
Ryu said, looking as well.
Think we might be able to pick up a bounty for making this place safe again? Well, safer, anyways. Worth a shot.
Bao shrugged.
Shall we? Might as well. There it is again.
The voice from before said as they walked out, acting casual.
Lucky. It's handsome. There's another one with it, too.
Another, identical sounding, added.
It's not as cute, but it's still good. It's about time.
The first, or perhaps a third, continued.
I'm tired of eating nothing but cats and dogs. We can't actually attack the big ones in their nest, or they'll catch us and kill us. It's such a pain. Good thing they come over here sometimes, then, isn't it? Come on, what are we waiting for, let's go. Yeah. Alright. Here they come.
Bao growled, both of them snapping their heads upward. There were 3 of them, descending fast from the mountain peak. Their human halves were pretty, but identical, all of them female with long pink hair and impish faces, their ears long and pointed. Despite that, their arms and legs were wings and talons, their bodies shifting to purple feathers starting at their shoulders and progressing down their sides to their waists. They wore no clothes, and Ryu forced himself not to stare at their chests, it would probably be fatal.
Hi there, handsome.
The first one greeted them, diving towards Ryu with her talons.
I'm Palo. Nice to eat you.
Before her talons could rake his face, he drove her off with a slash, gouging one claw lightly.
My name's Peach.
The second one chimed in, slashing at him as well. He was able to deflect one talon with his helmet, but the other opened a gouge on his cheek.
Back off, sis. I'm going to eat the handsome one. I'm Pewdie.
The third harpy went for his arm, and she had the most success, getting both talons around it and digging in.
I want the handsome one too.
Before he could shake her off, she had dipped her head down and taken a bite out of his shoulder. Distracted by doing so, she didn't see his blade coming, and took it across the chest. Bleeding from a deep gash below her breasts, she flapped back, blood trailing from her mouth as well.
Little help here?
Ryu asked, grunting, then relaxed as green sparkles coated his body.
Oh, right.
The spell would bolster his stamina and toughen his skin.
Looks like they all want me. You probably won't need that for yourself. I noticed,
Bao said dryly, taking aim at the slightly injured leader, then pausing.
Wait a second here.
Having backed off into the sky, the harpies weren't readying another dive, they had turned on each other instead.
Back off. The handsome one's mine. What are you doing, sis? Take this. Cut it out, both of you. Should we do something about this?
Bao asked as the harpies scuffled, all of them shouting insults.
Some healing would be nice.
Ryu clutched his shoulder wound.
Then take a bead on the one I ventilated best. Right. I know. Let's all eat them both.
Paolo decided suddenly, jerking back and diving towards Ryu again.
That works for me.
Peach agreed, pulling her claws from Pewdie and following her sister.
Let's just eat them without fighting, ok.
Pewdie's words were her last. Slowed by her wound, she was unable to dodge Bo's shot, which took her right in the mouth. Falling out of the sky, she tumbled over the edge to lie on the rocks below.
Sister.
Paolo turned her head to stare, then howled louder as Ryu cut off her wing. Screeching, she fell to the ground, and a boot to the face drove her over the cliffside as well.
You.
Shrieking incoherently, Peach struck him in the face, batting his sword away with her wings as she slashed at his head and body. No longer concerned with striking once and retreating, she tore at him over and over until another bolt took her in the chest, and she fell as well to join her sisters.
Took you long enough,
Ryu grunted.
You're still alive, ain't you?
Bao healed him.
Looks like you finally got the luck with the ladies you wanted. You're about as funny as Count Trout running for mayor.
Ryu glanced over the mountainside at the three bodies. None of them were moving.
Well, that's taken care of, at least. Yeah.
Bao grimaced.
They were saying something about eating cats and dogs. Think Susie was one of them. They seemed like they were talking about poaching those from hometown at night,
Ryu said, making a face.
So maybe not. Let's hope not, then, or we don't get paid.
Bao glanced at him.
What kind of animal was Susie, anyways? The paperwork didn't say. Oh, great.
Bao rolled his eyes.
And you didn't ask? Find time to bring this up. You didn't ask either.
Ryu pointed out.
Because I figured you knew. Too bad for you.
Turning away from the cliff, he looked around.
There anywhere to actually go up here? Looks like there's another cave over there.
Bao pointed at a fairly large boulder resting against a cliffside.
Those three must have blocked it off to finish up their trap. If they could move it, we should be able to.
Walking over, they braced their shoulder against it and shoved. It gave easier than they thought it would, actually rolling away and over the side.
Okay, cool. Now we just...
He stopped talking as another crash sounded from below. Running to the edge, they looked over, and both winced. The falling rock had hit another, much larger, boulder and sent it crashing down the mountainside. The bad news was that it had collapsed the cave mouth they had ducked into originally. The good news was that it smashed through the blockade the harpies had caused, clearing the normal pathway through the mountains. The very bad news was that a group of purple-scaled Menero fishmen had been examining said landslide at the time. Screaming, they ran back down the mountain, the boulder rolling after them.
Think they saw us up here?
Bao asked after several long moments of absolute silence.
I really hope not,
Ryu muttered fervently.
I'm with you there.
Bao glanced behind them.
Maybe we should, get inside that cavern before they come back. What you said?
The cavern, as they had hoped, seemed to lead downward. It was infested with more spiders and leeches, of course, but there were no more corpses. In the end, they emerged back down near ground level, on the normal trail once more. A pack of the vicious little goblins that infested the exterior ambushed them at that point, but after fending those off, the two of them climbed down the other side of the mountain as the sun began to set.
Long day,
Ryu commented as they made their camp.
No kidding,
Bao grunted. Neither of them was in the mood for much conversation, for several reasons, and after eating their dinner, he turned in. Fortunately, the ruined city wasn't far from there. They had both been there before, years ago, more for the adventure than out of any real business there. Apparently, it had once been known as Bleak, but a massive tectonic disturbance had completely destroyed the entire city while altering its geographical location significantly several centuries ago. Or, as Ryu would put it, the mother of all earthquakes had wiped it out. All that was left were the shells of buildings, slowly being reclaimed by the forest.
Looks like that big one over there's the most habitable,
Bao pointed out. The building he referred to had probably once been several floors tall, but now only one remained. There was another statue of Laden right outside the door, to the left, on the raised section of land around the building.
Set up our camp there, and start searching in the morning. Sounds good,
Ryu agreed, then jumped as another voice rang through the ruins.
Is someone there?
It was an old man, by the sound of it, inside the building they had just decided on.
Oh Saint Eva, help me. Please, help me. What the hell?
Bao muttered as they both started running.
Why someone else here too? We're coming, old-timer. What is it?
Ryu yelled, the two of them racing up a few steps before the door.
Roaches.
The old man shouted.
A good half dozen of them.
His hand on the doorknob, Ryu froze in his tracks, and he and Bao gave each other disgusted glances.
We should probably still help him,
Bao grumbled.
Yeah.
Opening the door, Ryu walked in.
Alright, old-timer, we holy shit.
The roaches he had mentioned were as large as most dogs. Bright red and hissing, they surrounded the old man, who was backed up against a wall.
What are you waiting for?
The oldest man either of them had ever seen shouted. Tall and thin, he was bald as an egg on top of his head, but his hair still grew long at the back and sides, joining an even longer beard to form a massive mane that almost worked as a shirt alone. His clothes were ragged and unwashed and his feet were bare, saying more than words could about his place in the world. Despite his age, he was vigorously fending the monsters off with a stout oak cane, but surrounded as he was, it was only a matter of time before they overwhelmed him. Bao changed that with a shot from his namesake, pinning one to the wall. Amazingly, the roach didn't expire, but squealed at its comrades, who turned on the spot to face the aggressors before charging in a wave. Ryu met them head-on, dividing the first one in half with a swift stroke before the other four crashed into his legs, heads down like battering rams. Cursing, he fell, but managed to kick out at two of them as he went down, knocking them away. The other two were on him, scratching at his arms and chest, their weight pinning him to the floor. Another arrow from Bao removed one of the aggressors, and with only one on him, Ryu was able to stab it until it expired. Forcing it off before the remaining two were on him as well was another story. As he shoved at the dead weight, he could see them approaching quickly and cursed under his breath. Before they could reach him, though, an unexpected party altered the equation. No longer quite so frightened, the old man smashed one of them to the floor just before it pounced, crushing its head in with repeated blows from his cane. The last one paused, and that was all Bao needed to nail it.
Not bad, old-timer,
Ryu said, rising from the floor and making sure the roach was dead. The second one Bao had shot had been killed as well, and by the looks of it, the old man had finished off the first.
I might be old, but I can still take care of myself, son.
The man cackled.
Appreciate the hand, though. 6-on-1's a little out of my league these days, but if one of those rascals had come at me alone, I'd have him spitted and cookin' before he could say eek.
Before they could reply, more hissing drew their eyes behind them, to the door they'd entered by. Another roach was standing there like it had come for a showdown, this one as large as the other 6 combined. Brown and grey with pulsing, ribbed flesh under its wings and antennae trailing on the floor, it was a truly disgusting sight.
As I was saying, even one of them's a bit much for an old man like me.
The hobo dropped on his rear and scuttled back into a corner.
Why don't you fellas take this one? You look like you could handle it, no problem. This was not in the job description,
Ryu commented sourly, stepping between him and the roach.
Gee, you think so?
Bao took careful aim, while the creature was standing still, and fired. The shot sunk into its head, but this only seemed to irritate it. Roaring, the monster charged.
Great. Looks like I'm not gonna pull off a vital shot. Try to slow it down, then.
Ryu held his footing as the beast rushed him, chopping down at its head a moment before it hit.
Oh, this is gonna suck.
It hit like a battering ram, 6 legs moving feverishly, knocking him off his feet and carrying him forward into a wall. Wheezing, Ryu hacked at its limbs, and managed to sever one, causing the roach to lean away. Before it could recover, he was scampering away from it, clutching his torso. It felt like a couple of cracked ribs. He was lucky that they weren't broken, and that Bao knew his white magic. If the defensive spell from the harpies had worn off, he knew he'd have been in a lot worse shape from that hit. Before the beast could run him down again, it reared back, hissing. Bao was behind it now, and apparently, it was a lot more sensitive in the rear. Ryu didn't wait around, taking advantage of its position, he ran forward and drove his sword up into the beast's exposed underside. Still hissing, it collapsed, and he stepped back out of the way as it fell.
What a freaking,
he started to say, then grunted as a massive weight rammed him from behind, knocking him forward onto his face. Before the roach could trample him, it paused, snarling, from another bolt in its vulnerable rear. Rather than try the same thing again, Ryu lopped off its other foreleg as he scrambled away from it, and the roach went down, unable to keep the front of its body up now. Gritting his teeth, he began stabbing it, over and over again, until it finally stopped moving for good.
You okay?
Bao asked, healing him.
It didn't bite you, did it? Nope.
Ryu grunted.
Just some cracked ribs. Those read better now. Good.
Bao looked around the room cautiously, obviously expecting more monsters.
Wounds are one thing, but infection's another. I ain't good enough to handle that just yet. Looks like it's all clear, old-timer. That was one hell of a cockroach, wasn't it?
The old man wandered over, as casual as if they'd just stomped a normal-sized bug.
Been wanderin' for a lot o' years now, but I ain't never seen one that size, even over in Sima. Appreciate the hand, gents. I'm Bao, and this is Ryu.
Bao thumbed at him.
Any idea why they came after you? Just hungry. Oh, they were hungry all right.
The old man cackled, pointing over at another corner of the ruined building. They had been too busy fighting to notice his campfire, with a huge metal pot over it.
Not for me, though. Since I started cookin', they came swarmin' in here like Meneros on free money day. Tell you what, I'll share with you folks, since you bailed me out and all. Don't never say Nero ain't a fair man. Much obliged, buddy.
Ryu smiled.
Nero's your name, then? That's right.
Nero bowed.
Mayor of this fair town, on account I'm the only one livin' here. Always wanted to be a mayor, ever since I was a kid. So I came to some place where nobody else was gonna run me out of town. You two okay, though. Stick around as long as you like.
He paused.
Speakin' o' which, why are you here? You don't wanna be mayor too, do you? Not really, no,
Bao somehow managed to say with a straight face.
We're rangers.
Seeing the look on the old man's face, he continued quickly.
We're looking for a lost pet in this city. Some Windians came by here a month or so ago and left without her. You ain't gonna kick me out?
Nero asked quietly.
Wouldn't even if we could.
Ryu looked around.
This isn't anybody else's city, is it? Isn't no law saying you can't live here? And if there was? We didn't see anything. Knew you folks were good ones.
Nero grabbed his hand and shook it.
Anything you need help with, then, ol' Nero's your man. Lost pet, hey? And here I was just thinkin' that I was wishin' there was a dog or a cat around here. Good thing I didn't find it.
He paused.
Oh, that reminds me. Forgot to take the collar off of it. Collar.
Ryu muttered as Nero walked over to his pot, muttering to himself.
You thinking what I am? But he said it wasn't a dog or a cat.
Bao whispered back.
We don't know it was a dog or cat. Some people have strange pets. Looks like a pig.
Bao glanced over at the pot.
Ever seen anybody with a pet pig before? A few. Shit.
Bao raised his voice.
Hey, Nero. There a name on that collar? Sure.
Nero yelled back.
Says Susie on this. Why? No.
Both of them yelled at once. A great deal of commotion ensued then, resembling something out of a children's puppet show more than a little. Getting kicked in the face by a pig wasn't much fun, but at least nobody was caught in the eruption of boiling water. Ryu wasn't sure exactly how the pot ended up on Bo's head, or why Nero was wearing one of the small roach corpses like a hat at one point, but he didn't intend on asking for an explanation. Eventually, it wound down, all three of them sitting around an exhausted, but living, pig.
Phew, that was close,
Bao muttered.
Good thing we figured it out in time. So much for my dinner.
Nero sighed.
Looked real tasty, too. Don't suppose you would let me take just one bite? I'll tell you what.
Bao stood up.
I'll go out and get you another one, even bigger, and we'll all split that. Sound good? Well, that's fair enough,
Nero agreed after a moment.
Mighty generous of you. I'm in a good mood.
Bao grinned.
First night here, and we find her right off the bat. What are the odds of luck like that, hey? After wrangling a roach the size of a caravan,
Ryu added dryly.
Details, details.
Bao waved it off.
Mina's going to be thrilled. Heh, she might even give me a kiss. What'll Sylvia think about that, hey? Your imagination's out of control,
Ryu told him, amused.
Hit it with something. Nah, I'm good.
Bao glanced out the door.
I'd better go get dinner, then. It's getting late. Be back in a jiffy. Righto.
Ryu followed him out, glancing up at the sunset.
Well, we got it done. Guess I can't complain. It sounds like you had quite an adventure,
Lawton said, as unmoving as ever.
Yeah, something like that,
Ryu muttered, then froze, remembering Nero. His response, however, wasn't quite as expected.
You can hear him too?
The old man demanded, hobbling up on his cane.
Yeah,
Bao agreed, looking from one face to another.
Just started a little while back, when we were leaving town. Oh, kids.
Nero sighed.
That ain't good, hearing gods like that. Old fella like me, it's one thing if I hear gods. I'm supposed to be crazy. Couple of kids like you? You're too young to be going crazy like me. If we all hear the same thing, doesn't that mean we're not crazy?
Ryu asked.
I would say so,
Lawton agreed.
I wasn't aware you could actually hear me, either. Why didn't you tell me, Nero? You get funny looks if you go around talking to statues, and I get enough of those already.
Nero shrugged.
Guess it's okay out here with nobody around, though. It seems to be,
Ryu agreed cautiously.
Man, this still gives me the jeeblies.
Bao shook his head.
I'm going to catch dinner. See you guys when I get back. He'll get used to it eventually.
Ryu watched him walk off into the woods that were reclaiming the ruins, muttering to himself.
Probably. He will,
Lawton promised.
So then. Do you suppose you might have time to tell me about all of this now? You really do like stories, don't you?
Ryu chuckled.
Wouldn't you, if you were in my shoes? You don't have shoes. You know what I mean. He's got a point,
Nero chimed in.
Besides, I wouldn't mind hearing all about this myself. Sounds interesting. Alright, you win.
Sitting down on the edge of the raised land the building was on, Ryu thought for a moment. And then, under the rising moon, with his two new friends listening, he began to tell them his story. Another tale of infinite wars.